I'm going to try something a little different. Can you hear me back there without the microphone? It's a little easier than walking back and forth. I'm the Vice President and Chief Information Officer of Corporate Systems. And I just want to relate to you something that I saw the other day that sort of defined my job, not only as it relates to e-commerce, but my job as a whole. And it was really a quote from the CIO of US West when he said that my primary role is to point out obvious violations of common sense. And that's sort of what we're all struggling with here. What is common sense? What does all of this happen? What is this e-commerce phenomenon? Well, as Ken did a very good job of explaining to you, there is a strong consumer connection. But the truth of the matter is, in this consumer connection, few, if any, companies have learned how to make a profit using e-commerce today. Many of them had significant success reaching consumers, but the ROIs haven't been there. Amazon.com, as Ken suggested, has yet to turn a profit. Furthermore, many of you might have been aware that Monday, the Dow Jones experienced a drop of over 200 points. One of the factors, they numbered numerous factors, including profit-taking, the obvious one, but one of the factors that was attributable to this drop in the market was the volatility surrounding internet-based companies. How does a company like Amazon.com, who has never turned a profit, support a stock price of $200 a share? It just doesn't make sense. So that's part of the issues that we're experiencing in the overall environment as it relates to internet commerce. Will it happen? I truly do believe it will grow, and we'll talk about that a little later. With a real benefit, though, where most of the activity has been going on in the internet today is in the area of business to business, the trading partners, the passing of information to help facilitate doing business between companies. And the interesting thing about that is business-to-business commerce is accomplished on intranets, extranets, but not the internet. It is not the World Wide Web where business-to-business commerce is happening today. Part of that is that the public internets are fine for non-mission critical applications and work. But when you do mission critical work, by definition, what businesses are doing with each other, you require three things that are hard to achieve today within the infrastructure that exists within the internet: security, availability, and sustainability. And what does all of that mean? From a security point of view, and Ken talked about it, people are concerned about things like doing credit card transactions. Actually, there are statistics that show that you are better off, you are safer giving your credit card or using a credit card to make a purchase over the internet than you are handing your credit card to a waiter or waitress in a restaurant. Why? Because you don't know how many copies of your credit card image have been run off in the back when you turn over the card. But when you do it over the internet, there's only the single transaction. So security, in that sense, is not so much the issue. However, in the business-to-business world, the real issues are revolving around areas best known as industrial espionage. What about hackers getting into the systems, getting into areas they don't belong? More importantly, what about hijackers? There's a whole industry that's revolving around people sitting outside of your firewall and intercepting the traffic and taking information. And it's not so much that they're looking to take financial information, but they're looking at intellectual property, the way you do business, and things of this nature. That's where the security concerns exist today. Availability. How many of you in this room have been on the internet? I'm assuming most of you have. How many of you have gotten the message, server not available? That's fine for you. But for businesses doing business with each other, that's unacceptable. Time is money. An unavailable server costs money. That's another reason why it doesn't happen on the internet, but rather on the intranets and extranets, private networks. Sustainability. The ability to accommodate large volumes of online transactions. I was in another seminar not too long ago with an individual pointed out to me, but what about Amazon.com? They have over 1 million transactions a day. And my response is yes, from 1 million different people. They were each singular transactions. But what happens if you're trying to accommodate 1 million transactions from a single source? The internet isn't ready yet. You cannot maintain the sustainability of the connection. Not only have many of you received server not available, how many of you have been timed out from some address that you've been at? Again, an unacceptable mode of behavior on a commerce-to-commerce type of environment. The impacts of e-commerce on business. Increased electronic activity between trading partners. It will continue. It's becoming more and more important. Why? Because there are benefits to be derived. But some of the challenges surrounding this is uniformity of the data and the data standards. If two companies or more companies elect to communicate with each other electronically, to do ordering, inventory ordering, just-in-time inventory, to do electronic payments, I'm going to order the product, and then I'm going to acknowledge receipt, and then I'm going to pay you. There have to be standards on what the data looks like to facilitate that transaction. Without that, it's the Wild West. Transactions get lost, things get garbled. So a lot of what the industry as a whole is struggling with is getting a uniformity of what data should look like. And there are numerous governing organizations, including ANSI and others, that are wrestling with that very problem. But there are benefits, efficiencies, cost savings. If you no longer have to send an invoice via the mail, you don't have to create the invoice on a piece of paper, put it in the mail, pay the 32 cents, or what's it going to be, 33 cents, come January 1st, have somebody receive that piece of paper, process it, enter it, cut the check, and all of that. There is a lot of efficiencies and therefore a lot of money to be saved if some of those transactions can be done electronically. Finally, impacts on the consumer. Ken touched upon some of these. What's really happening here is a change in the delivery or the interaction. There are things happening that are disintermediating the middleman. How many of you think that the travel agent as we know today will be here 5 years from now? That whole process will be disintermediated. Why? Because now through the internet, any one of us can go out and find the best fare on whatever airline to go to 2 points that we want to go to. We can get the best rate for a hotel. We can do all of those types of processes. Now, one would like to think that we, the consumer, will benefit from that because all of a sudden the airlines are going to say, well, we no longer need to pay a 10% commission. I suspect we're not going to see a 10% decrease in airline fares, though. What will happen, though, is that there will be those type of activities. The other areas Ken touched upon is companies are struggling. If you have a large investment in your brick and mortar, in a physical structure, if you're Walmart, how do you also get into the internet business without alienating all of your associates? Particularly if you've spent huge capital investments, as say here in Amarillo. In what, less than a 50-mile radius, there are 3 that I know of Walmart supercenters. You're ready to write that investment off? Now, where there is a good play for you is in the more rural areas where maybe it doesn't make economic sense to put a Walmart. So companies are wrestling with how do I reconcile this? How do I allow for the fact that I'm not necessarily collecting or creating new wealth, I'm transferring the means by which that happens. From where I sit, and it's open to debate because this is a rapidly changing environment, the only people who truly appear to be making new money, not just moving money around, but need to be making new money, are the people who provide access. RNet is a company that didn't exist 5 years ago. Its very being is a result of this increased use of electronic commerce and the need for people to communicate in a wired world. CompuServe, AOL, these are the companies that are making money. The people who also provide the portals, Yahoo, Excite, the search engines, but if you notice about those search engines, what happens when you log on to one of them? There's an advertising banner along the top. That's where they're making the money, because that space is very, very coveted, and companies will pay a great deal of money to have that advertising space, because then they hope that will facilitate their e-commerce. That is sort of the view from where I'm at. There are two different views, obviously. There's the view of the consumer side, an area that's still very much growing, subject to a lot of maturity and a lot of evolution. And then the business to business, which has been in place for far longer, and I think will continue to grow in its overall need into the marketplace. It will serve a purpose. But there were a lot of business issues that yet still have to be worked out when you begin to think about, well, I'm disintermediating part of what I already do. Is there a true opportunity to make money there, or is it just a cost savings? And what are the costs associated with those cost savings in terms of human capital, perception, and opportunity? Thank you very much.